There's been a gray SUV parked across from my building every day for the last 2 weeks. Same time, same spot, same driver, and I know exactly who she is. She hasn't knocked, she hasn't called, but she's there. Engine sometimes running, sometimes not. She just watches. I pretend I don't see her. I shut the curtains like I'm trying to block out sunlight. I lower my head when I walk past the window, but I see her reflection in the glass door of the laundromat. I hear her engine purr when I take out the trash. It's her, Tessa, my ex-wife. Or, I guess she's not technically my ex yet. I haven't signed the papers. Neither has she. They're just sitting in a yellow envelope on my desk like a sleeping grenade. We're both circling the pin. And before anyone asks, yes, she told me to go. She told me to find someone else. She said it like she was tossing away leftovers she didn't want to reheat. And for the first time in my life, I actually listened. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't even cry in front of her. I just left. And now she watches. Like I'm the one who broke her. It didn't start right away. The first week after I left, it was silent. No texts. No emails. No vague Instagram quotes about healing and regrowth. She didn't care. At least that's what I thought. Then I met someone. Not planned, not some kind of revenge thing. Her name's May. She's got this sharp, no-nonsense voice and calls my hoodie hideous in the most affectionate way. She doesn't flinch when I say I'm still figuring things out. She listens. She waits. And one evening I posted a photo. Just one. Me and May sitting on the grass at a food truck park. She was licking barbecue sauce off her fingers, and I captioned it something stupid like, "Best ribs in town." The picture barely showed her face. But that was the trigger. 40 minutes after posting it, I got my first call from an unknown number. Then another. By morning, May's follower list had 2 new fake accounts. Both with no posts, no names. Just profile photos of flowers. 3 days later, May found a note taped to her apartment door that read, "You don't even know who he really is." She thought it was her neighbor being creepy. But I knew. That night, the gray SUV showed up. And now, I don't know what's worse. The silence or the presence. The fact that she isn't calling to scream at me. She's not trying to win me back. She's just watching. What does she want? She's the one who pushed me away. She told me I was a burden. That she felt trapped in a life she didn't sign up for. She said being with me made her feel like she was suffocating in beige, her exact words. And now she can't stop staring through tinted glass. I tried walking up to the car once, just to see if she'd roll the window down. But as soon as I stepped off the curb, she drove away. 2 minutes later, I got a text. "Don't." That's it. Just that word. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because deep down, I'm still afraid of her. Not in a physical way, but emotionally, psychologically. She knows me too well. She knows that I don't like confrontation, that I internalize everything, that I replay conversations until I've bled them dry. And I know she knows I'm watching her watching me. So yeah, maybe I did find someone else. But somehow I'm still not free. I wish I could say I stopped noticing her after the 3rd week, that I got used to the SUV, the low hum of its engine, the shape of her silhouette in the driver's seat with the seat reclined just enough to almost disappear. But you don't get used to being hunted by a memory you're still trying to scrub out of your bloodstream. She doesn't knock. She doesn't text anymore. She just shows up, sometimes not even outside my building. Once, I saw her across the parking lot at the grocery store while I was loading canned soup and apples into the trunk. She didn't wave. She didn't move. Just stood there, hands in her coat pockets, staring like she was seeing something no one else could. I told May. I had to. I didn't want to ruin something good with silence. I've made that mistake before. So I sat her down over coffee in her tiny living room, my hands wrapped around a chipped mug like it could anchor me to the floor. "Hey, something weird's been happening," I began. She didn't even blink, just nodded for me to continue. I told her everything. The SUV, the voiceless calls, the note, the feeling that I was being studied. May didn't gasp or freak out like I expected. She just tilted her head and said, "So what do you want to do?" That question hit harder than anything Tessa ever said to me. Because I didn't know. I didn't want drama. I didn't want confrontation. I didn't even want revenge. I just wanted to live a life where I wasn't constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if the woman who let me go was waiting to punish me for finally walking away. May said she'd support whatever I needed. But she also made it clear she wasn't going to be part of some twisted triangle. I'm not a prop in her show, she said. Either we're building something together or you're still stuck in the last scene. And she was right. So I made a decision. I blocked Tessa's number. I deleted the call logs. I even reported the fake accounts that kept popping up on May's profile. And for a few days, it worked. No SUV. No mysterious texts. No unsettling presence in the background of my life. I started breathing a little deeper. May and I made plans to visit her aunt in Asheville for a weekend, just something quiet, low stakes. I even started unpacking the last of my boxes. I was beginning to believe maybe, just maybe, she had let go too. Until last Thursday. I got home from work a little later than usual. The sun had already dipped behind the rooftops and the hallway in my building felt strangely colder. I opened the door to my apartment and froze. There, on my kitchen table, was a single object. My old wristwatch. The same one Tessa had bought me for our 5th anniversary. The one I hadn't seen since the move. I had assumed it was lost in one of the boxes I didn't bother taking with me. But there it was. Centered perfectly. No note. No scratches. Not a speck of dust on it. My door hadn't been forced. My locks were still intact. I checked the windows, all locked from the inside. But something was off. The air felt touched. Rearranged. My toothbrush was slightly out of place. A spoon I hadn't used was drying in the rack. Someone had been here. She had been here. I wanted to call the police. I really did. But what was I going to say? That my ex-wife maybe broke into my apartment and left behind a memory? It wasn't a crime to return something I technically owned. So instead, I sat on the couch and stared at the watch for 2 straight hours. Then I put it in the drawer and told myself it wasn't a message. Even though I knew it was. The next morning, May noticed I was off. I lied. Said I didn't sleep well. She offered to bring coffee over later that night. I almost told her not to come. But I didn't want to be alone. That evening, May knocked on the door at exactly 6:42. I opened it and immediately felt it. That pull. That tightness behind my eyes. Like we were being watched. I stepped into the hallway and glanced around. And there, parked further down the street this time, mostly in shadow, was the SUV. She hadn't left. She just changed her angle. And now I was certain this wasn't regret. This wasn't heartbreak. This was control. That night after May left, I double-locked the door and pushed the kitchen chair under the knob like some kid scared of monsters. I wasn't scared of her exactly, not in the way you fear danger, but in the way you fear your past when it doesn't stay where you buried it. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, waiting for a knock that never came. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I called a locksmith. Told him I wanted new locks, front and back. He came by around noon, said the old ones hadn't been tampered with. That stung in a way I can't explain because it meant what I feared was true. She still had keys. And I had been stupid enough to leave without changing anything. I just assumed she didn't care enough to use them. But now I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd already been in here more than once. How many times had I come home late and not noticed the coaster moved or a pair of socks folded differently? That's when I started noticing the little things. My shampoo was slightly lower than I remembered. A takeout menu I had thrown out was back on the counter. May's toothbrush, the one she kept here for sleepovers, had been snapped in half and placed back into the cup upright like some sick joke. I asked myself over and over, why? Why wasn't she just angry and done like most people after a separation? Why wasn't she out with her mysterious wineglass emoji man, Grayson? Why wasn't she happy she didn't have to deal with beige little Eldon anymore? But I knew the answer. Even if I didn't want to admit it. Tessa never let go of things. Even the things she claimed she didn't want anymore. She had to own the last word, the last look, the last breath. That was always her pattern. It wasn't about love. It was about power. And right now she was winning. May noticed the tension. She tried to be gentle about it, not wanting to step too far into something that wasn't hers. But when she opened her bag one night and found one of her journals missing, a leather-bound one she always zipped up tight, she snapped. "Where's my notebook?" she asked, voice suddenly sharp. "What do you mean?" I blinked, confused. "I always keep it in this pocket. I write in it every day. I literally zipped it shut in front of you yesterday. And now it's gone." I felt ice trickle through my ribs. "You think someone took it?" May didn't answer. She didn't have to. I checked every drawer, every couch cushion, every backpack in the apartment. Nothing. Then something occurred to me. I opened my laptop. There were 3 new tabs open, all with pages from a local flower shop, all centered on lilies. May's favorite flower. I hadn't searched for them. And when I checked my phone, buried in the recently deleted folder of my photos were 2 screenshots I'd never taken, both from May's Instagram. One showed her in my hoodie. The other was a mirror selfie captioned, "Learning to feel safe again." I didn't show May. I should have, but I didn't. I just told her I'd help her look for the journal and suggested maybe she took it home by accident. But I knew the truth. Tessa had been inside while May was here. I wanted to believe she just wanted to make a point. That this was her way of saying, I still exist. But it felt deeper than that now. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a blueprint. She was setting the stage for something. The next morning, May called me from her place before I even got out of bed. I could hear the panic in her voice. "Eldon, did you tell anyone about my sister?" "What?" "No, why?" There was a pause. "Someone sent me an email," she said slowly. "From a burner address. Just 1 sentence." "What did it say?" "It said, 'Tell Eldon what really happened to your sister before I do.'" I swear the room went silent. My own breathing sounded like it belonged to someone else. I didn't even know May had a sister. And that was the moment it clicked. Tessa had broken past boundaries I didn't even know existed. She had gotten into May's private world. Not just her toothbrush. Not just her journal. But the dark corners. The things May never even told me. Because somehow, Tessa knew. And that meant this wasn't just about hurting me. This was about erasing whatever happiness I was building and replacing it with her shadow. I didn't ask May about her sister. Not then. Not while her voice trembled like that. I just listened, let her breathe, and said all the right useless things. "It'll be okay, I've got you, we'll figure it out." But what I didn't tell her, what I couldn't tell her, was that I was terrified. Not of some big dramatic confrontation, not of the kind of wild explosion you see in movies. No. I was scared of quiet persistence. The slow, intentional kind. The kind that lives in vents and cracks and beneath welcome mats. The kind that watches your life grow from the outside and waits, just waits, for the right moment to poison the roots. Tessa hadn't contacted me directly since the "don't" text. But her fingerprints were everywhere. Not literal ones, she wasn't stupid. But traces. Impressions. Ghost-level presence that never showed up on paper but pressed into my chest with every breath I took. 2 nights after May's call, I woke up at 3:14 a.m. to a faint sound. A woman humming. It wasn't coming from the hallway. Not from outside. It was inside the apartment. I sat up, heart thudding, and held my breath. The sound was soft, too soft, like someone humming directly into a pillow. Familiar, too. Like a lullaby you didn't know you knew. I grabbed my phone and opened the audio recorder even though I knew how insane it looked. I stood in the middle of the living room, turning slowly, trying to catch the direction. And then it stopped. No door opened. No window creaked. Nothing. Just silence, dense and deliberate. I checked the locks. The windows. The closets. Everything was shut tight. I even opened the fridge like maybe I was hallucinating it. And just when I thought I had finally cracked, I noticed something on the floor near the bookshelf. It was a crumpled paper napkin. But not just any napkin. One of hers. The ones she used to doodle on back when we were still pretending to be happy. This one had a little drawing of a bird in a cage, and under it 3 words scribbled in a rush. "Still yours, Eldon." I fell backward onto the couch and stared at it like it might burst into flames. She'd been here. Again. But more than that, she was sending a message. She wasn't just watching. She was inside. The next morning, I showed May the napkin. I didn't want to, not because I didn't trust her, but because I didn't want her to think I was losing my mind. But May didn't flinch. She studied the sketch, ran her thumb along the folded edge, and then just nodded like she'd been waiting for this moment. "She's in your walls," May said quietly. I blinked. "What?" "Not literally," she added. "But spiritually. Emotionally. She's trying to carve her way into every space she no longer belongs. She doesn't want you back. She wants to own the version of you that moved on without her." I didn't know whether to be comforted or horrified by how clearly May understood her. But one thing was certain, we had to stop pretending this was random. This was a system. A plan. So I did something I hadn't wanted to do since I left. I went back to the old apartment. It was a Saturday. Rainy. I figured she'd be out, she always hated gloomy weather. I didn't want to confront her. I just needed to see. To understand what kind of person I was really dealing with now. Because this wasn't the woman I had once kissed in bookstore aisles or cooked soup for when she had the flu. This was someone else. Something colder. Smarter. The apartment looked exactly the same, which was part of the problem. The same curtains. The same doormat. The same little chalkboard by the kitchen that still read milk, cinnamon, batteries. Like time had stopped the second I walked out. But what got me wasn't any of that. It was the closet. In the hallway. The small one we used to keep board games and coats in. It was open. And inside, stacked carefully on each shelf, were boxes. Labeled by month. Labeled with my name. July, Eldon's receipts. August, Eldon's messages. September, Eldon's patterns. I opened one. Inside were printed screenshots, handwritten notes, GPS screenshots, even a receipt from the taco place I'd taken Maida on our second date. She had been tracking everything. Documenting me like a wildlife researcher observing an escaped specimen. She didn't just know I was with someone else, she knew when, where, what I wore, what I said. She knew things I didn't even remember. And still, not one voicemail. Not one fight. Just silent, calculated obsession. I didn't take anything from the closet. I didn't even touch most of it. I just stood there, feeling my entire body vibrate with the awful realization that I had never actually left. I had simply relocated. I locked the door behind me when I left. Walked back to the car with rain in my eyes, unsure if it was water or something else. I thought about calling the police. But what would I even say? My ex is cataloging my life and leaving me napkins in the dark? All I could do was go back to May's apartment and pretend I still lived in a reality where love ends with arguments, not surveillance. But even as I curled up beside May that night, my hand holding hers beneath the blankets, my eyes stayed fixed on the corner of the room. Half expecting a voice from the walls to whisper my name. I thought locking a door meant something. I thought it marked a boundary, a line between in here and out there. But after I stood inside that old apartment and saw my life packed into labeled boxes, categorized, dissected, I realized a door never really protects you if the person you're running from already knows how you breathe. I spent the next few days barely speaking. May noticed. Of course she did. She's intuitive like that. She reads people the way most people read cereal boxes, quickly, accurately, and always with a little worry behind the eyes. But I didn't want to tell her what I found. Not yet. Because admitting it aloud would make it too real, and I was still holding out hope that maybe I had imagined parts of it. Maybe the lighting played tricks on me. Maybe Tessa wasn't as methodical, as disturbed as it looked. But reality doesn't let you off the hook that easily. It was Tuesday afternoon when I got the call from my landlord. Hey, Eldon? Just a quick heads up, the contractor said your second bedroom window was replaced last week. Didn't have that on our records. Just confirming it was you. My throat closed. I didn't request anything, I said slowly. Huh. That's strange. The maintenance guys said there was a work order for a cracked frame and interior condensation. Looked legit. They even had your name signed on it. I froze. Someone forged my signature. But why? I thanked him and hung up. Then I drove home so fast I barely remembered hitting the red lights. The apartment felt normal at first glance, too normal. Like someone had scrubbed the weird out of it. But then I walked into the second bedroom. The guest room. May sometimes used it when she worked late and didn't want to drive back across town. The window was different. Slightly thicker. A cleaner pane. Same blinds, but the edges were newly screwed in, tighter than I'd ever bothered to install them. I pulled them back and stared outside. Then I noticed it. Tucked between the molding and the frame, inside the room, almost invisible unless you were looking from an exact angle, was a black pinhole lens. A camera. Tiny. Sleek. Hidden behind a smoked glass bead, barely larger than a grain of rice. For a full minute I couldn't move. Couldn't think. I just stood there, blinking, trying to will it out of existence. But it didn't vanish. It blinked. Once. Subtle. But unmistakable. I yanked it free with a pencil and dropped it into a glass of water. It fizzled slightly like a dying firework and went dark. Then I collapsed onto the carpet and started shaking. Because this wasn't just obsession anymore. This wasn't a bad breakup. This was invasion. And not just of me, of May. Of her privacy. Her peace. Her safety. I had brought this into her world. She came over that evening like nothing was wrong. I wanted to tell her. Every bone in my body begged me to come clean. But I just couldn't. Not yet. She had enough to deal with: work stress, a mom in physical therapy, and the still unspoken trauma about her sister. I didn't want to add possible stalker ex-wife surveillance to her plate. So instead, I made us grilled cheese and tried to act like I wasn't unraveling. But when I leaned against the kitchen counter, I noticed her eyes scanning the room. Not nervously, intuitively. As if she sensed the air was off. "You're not here," she said softly, buttering her toast. I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" "I mean your body is here. Your eyes too. But your energy, it's somewhere else." I didn't reply. I couldn't. That night, while she slept, I sat in the living room with the lights off and the TV muted, just staring at the door. My laptop sat open on the coffee table. I refreshed the same page every few minutes, a Google search for hidden surveillance laws in Ohio. Everything I read made it worse. Yes, it was illegal. Yes, it counted as criminal trespass. But unless I had video of her installing it, proving it was Tessa's doing would be close to impossible. Especially if she used fake work orders and wore gloves. She was smart. Smarter than me. Smarter than most people, honestly. But what terrified me wasn't her intelligence. It was her patience. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't threatening. She was waiting, studying, undermining everything I thought was mine. And just when I thought I couldn't sink any lower, May walked out of the bedroom around 3 a.m., rubbing her eyes, holding something in her hand. I found this taped to the inside of your shoe, she said groggily. What is it? It was a Polaroid of me and May on the bench outside the food truck park. From 2 weeks ago. The photo was taken from behind, from across the street, with a slight zoom. I flipped it over. One word, written in all caps, borrowed. No signature. No date. May looked at me. Eldon, what is this? And just like that, my silence became the loudest thing in the room. I wish I could tell you I said something heroic in that moment. That I took the Polaroid from May's hand, looked her in the eyes, and finally told her the truth about the window, the camera, the napkin, the boxes. I wish I'd owned it. But all I could do was stammer. My mouth opened, but the words collapsed halfway up my throat and died there. I'd been afraid before of being alone, of losing control, of change, but this was different. This was the kind of fear that builds from shame. That tells you waited too long to speak, and now the silence has turned into betrayal. May looked at me for a long time. Then she just nodded slowly, not in understanding, in disappointment. She didn't yell. Didn't storm out. She just turned around, walked back into the bedroom, and shut the door behind her without another word. And I sat there, gripping that photo like it was a knife turned inward. The next morning, she was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just her toothbrush missing from the cup, her favorite hoodie gone from the coat hook, and the faint smell of her lavender shampoo still lingering in the air like an echo that hadn't caught up yet. I didn't blame her. I wouldn't have stayed either. By that afternoon, I found myself standing in the second bedroom again, staring at that new window like it was a portal. The hole the camera had left was barely visible now. I'd filled it with a bit of toothpaste and some touch-up paint, like that could undo what had been done. But it hadn't. Nothing had changed. She was still out there. Still in here, in ways that made locks feel like decorations and alarms feel like jokes. I hadn't seen her in days, not the SUV, not a shadow across the street, nothing. But her presence was thicker than ever. And then came the night she let herself in. It was around 2:30 a.m. I had finally drifted into a shallow, twitchy kind of sleep on the couch, the kind where your body goes still but your brain keeps whispering, don't relax. I woke to a creak. Not a loud one. Not dramatic. Just deliberate. Like a person who's moved through your space so many times they know which step won't squeak. My heart seized. My mouth went dry. I didn't sit up, I stayed perfectly still, eyes barely open, breathing through my nose in shallow, slow inhales. And I heard her. Her footsteps, slow and patient, moving from the entryway toward the hallway. Past the kitchen. Toward the bedrooms. She wasn't even trying to hide it this time. She wasn't in a rush. She knew I knew. I couldn't move. Not because I didn't want to, because I couldn't. My legs were cement. My brain screamed do something, but my body was in rebellion. It felt like a dream, but I was fully awake. I heard her open the second bedroom door. Pause. Then the creak of the chair. The one May used when she worked at my desk. Tessa sat down. She didn't say anything. Didn't move again. Just sat. I lay there for what felt like hours. I don't remember falling back asleep. I think I just blacked out from the exhaustion of fear. But when I finally opened my eyes, it was morning. Pale light filled the apartment. Birds chirped outside like the night hadn't happened at all. But the chair was turned, facing the door. And in the middle of my desk, sitting perfectly straight, was an old pair of earbuds. The cheap kind. The kind I used to use when we'd fall asleep to podcasts in bed, each of us with one ear in, our hands laced under the covers. She had left them there like a calling card. A sick little souvenir. I didn't call the police. I didn't file a report. I couldn't. There was no forced entry. Nothing stolen. Nothing damaged. No proof. And worst of all, no witness. I showered. Got dressed. Walked to the grocery store in a daze, barely aware of my surroundings. I needed to do something normal to pretend I wasn't being pulled apart thread by thread. That's when I saw the flyer. On the community board near the checkout line. Dozens of them, of course. Babysitter ads, lost pets, garage sales. But one caught my eye. It was handwritten. A single sheet of white paper with one sentence in dark blue marker. Do you think they tell you the truth when you sleep? There was no phone number. No email. Just that. I asked the clerk if they'd seen who put it up. He shrugged. By the time I paid for my groceries and came back, it was gone. That night, I locked everything. Windows. Doors. Even the sliding closet. I dragged the dresser in front of the bedroom door and slept with the light on, phone in one hand, hammer in the other. She didn't come back. But when I woke up, the earbuds were gone from the desk. And in their place was a single slice of toast. Cold. Buttered. Cut diagonally. Just the way I used to make it for her. I didn't eat the toast. I couldn't. I stared at it for 20 solid minutes, seated at the edge of my bed like I was waiting for it to confess. Cold, perfectly buttered, diagonally sliced, that last part was what hit me hardest. Because I hadn't cut toast like that since the week Tessa left. And yet, there it was. A small, silent message. The kind that tells you you're no longer in control of your own life, that someone else is writing the story now and you're just fumbling through the margins. That morning, I sat on the floor with the hammer still in my hand, dialing May's number over and over, letting it ring, not leaving a message. I had no idea what I'd even say if she picked up. She hadn't spoken to me since she left. And I didn't blame her. Honestly, I wouldn't pick up either. I had pulled her into this mess, kept her in the dark, and now there was a decent chance Tessa had been inside this apartment while May was sleeping in the next room. That guilt alone made my stomach twist. But it didn't stop there. Around noon, I received a text from an unknown number. No contact photo. No history. Just one sentence. You'll never be completely hers. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Not because I thought that would make it go away, but because reading it over and over was starting to make it feel true. That evening, I walked the building's perimeter. I checked for cameras, for fresh tire marks, for anything I might have missed in the past. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, evidence, maybe, or confirmation that I wasn't losing my mind, but I found neither. Just more of the same, the eerie quiet of normalcy hiding something unwell underneath. And then, in the corner of the lot behind the building, near the maintenance closet nobody ever touched, I found a folded piece of lined notebook paper stuck behind the gas meter. I knew it was for me. It had my name written on the front in her handwriting. Sharp and elegant. Inside was a map. A hand-drawn sketch of a place that looked vaguely familiar, a structure with a sloped roof and a water tower nearby. A small X marked one of the rooms. Underneath, in smaller print, a phrase. Come alone. You'll remember. It hit me like ice. I did recognize the sketch. It was an old church retreat center we'd visited during the 3rd year of our marriage. The one where she'd told me she was starting to feel like a person again. It had been abandoned for years, overrun by weeds and silence. I don't know what possessed me to go. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the sick, awful need to know how far she was willing to go. So I drove. An hour later, I pulled up to the gravel lot behind the crumbling building. The place was darker than I remembered, like the trees had grown taller just to shield it from the sun. The air was heavy with the scent of wetwood and mildew. And silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that waits. I entered through the back door, that was swollen from moisture, creaking like it hadn't been opened in years. Dust curled around my shoes. I walked slowly, the hammer in my coat pocket heavy against my hip. Every corner of that place reeked of her, not her scent, but her presence. Like she had poured herself into the walls. I followed the sketch to the marked room. When I opened the door, my breath caught. It was a replica of our old bedroom. The same bedsheets. The same nightstand. Even the same chipped lamp with the crooked shade we'd argued about for months. A photo of us sat on the dresser, the one from our honeymoon where she wore that ridiculous sun hat and I had food on my shirt. Everything was identical. Except for one thing. There was no reflection in the mirror. I walked over, heart pounding. The glass was there. Clean. But it was a two-way mirror. Behind it I could faintly make out movement, the edge of a coat, the silhouette of someone just out of reach. I backed away. And that's when the speaker clicked on. Her voice came through soft, calm, practiced. Do you remember, Eldon? This was where you told me you could never leave me. That no matter what I became, you'd still call it love? Was that a lie? I froze. My throat dry. I never wanted to hurt you, I whispered into the room, unsure if she could hear. You didn't hurt me, she replied. You forgot me. And that's worse. I didn't forget you, I said, louder now. I survived you. There was a pause. The speaker clicked off. No more sound. I bolted. Ran out of that building like something was chasing me. My hammer slipped from my coat, but I didn't stop. I got in the car and drove until I saw streetlights and traffic and the normal world again. But that night, when I returned to the apartment, something had changed. The photo on my fridge, the one of me and May from the food truck park, was gone. In its place, pinned with the same magnet, was a different photo. Of me. Standing in that echo room. Staring into the two-way mirror. Taken from the other side. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I sat in the kitchen with every light on, staring at the photo she'd left. My own face, frozen in shock, standing inside a memory she had restitched with surgical precision. My reflection, framed by obsession. It was the moment I realized Tessa wasn't just trying to haunt me. She wanted to trap me. In guilt. In nostalgia. In the twisted comfort of what we used to be. She couldn't stand that I had rebuilt anything without her. Even if it was cracked and fragile and still trembling. But the strange part? The fear was fading. Because for the first time in this entire nightmare, I felt clarity. She had gone as far as she could go. There was no mystery left. No question about whether she missed me or wanted closure. No illusions. She didn't want me, she wanted control. She didn't want healing. She wanted ownership. And that realization? It shattered the last thread of doubt I'd been clinging to. So I did something that terrified me even more than any of her games. I told the truth. I drove to May's apartment the next morning. I didn't call first. I figured if she opened the door, that was permission enough. And if she didn't, well, I'd understand. She opened it. Hair messy. Eyes tired. Hoodie on inside out. But she opened it. I stood there, heart beating hard, holding a shoebox in my hands. I need to show you everything, I said. She didn't speak, but she stepped aside. Let me in. We sat on her floor while I laid it all out. The napkin. The earbuds. The photo. The voice message I'd secretly recorded in that room. I told her about the window, the fake work order, the toast. Everything. No more filters. No more trying to protect her from the ugliness. I was done shielding people from the damage I hadn't asked for. When I was finished, she just sat quietly, knees pulled up to her chest, head resting on the couch. Then she asked the question I didn't expect. Do you still want this? Me? Even if it means dragging a ghost behind us for a while? I looked at her, fully and honestly, and answered with something I hadn't felt in months. I don't want to run from anything anymore. I want to build something real even if it takes time. And I want to build it with you. She nodded. No drama. No movie moment. Just this quiet, almost sacred kind of understanding between two people who'd finally stopped pretending they weren't scared. And then she smiled. Not a big, theatrical smile, just the kind that reaches the eyes. The kind that tells you the door is still open. We spent the rest of the day at the police station. I handed over everything, the photos, the napkin, the voice recording. They took it seriously. A detective with kind eyes and calloused fingers asked me for dates, details, timelines. I gave it all. There wasn't enough to arrest her yet, but there was enough to make her visible to the system. That night, May came over. We replaced the locks together. Not just the front door, but the window hardware, the backsliders, even the attic crawl space I hadn't touched since moving in. We made a project out of it. May called it exorcising the apartment. And when we were done, she handed me a small black object. A new key. Only you and I have this one, she said, holding my gaze. She'll never touch this lock. And something about that moment, that tiny piece of metal, so simple and ordinary, felt like the most powerful thing I'd held in months. A few days later, I received one final text from an unknown number. This isn't the ending. I blocked it. Didn't even flinch. Because she was wrong. It was the ending. But it wasn't my ending. My story didn't end in fear or shame or whispered threats behind glass. It didn't end in running or hiding or waiting for her to make the next move. It ended with a key. With a woman who sat beside me through the dark and didn't walk away. And with me finally free, finally steady, locking the door behind me from the inside. For good.